Make sure if I don't have a phone. All right, take two. We're having some technical difficulties. Thanks for bearing with us. Here we are at Grow Up. Robbie's coming in, retweeting this.
Yes. Oh, I left my water over here though, so I'll be right back.
Goodness.
But you guys should be able to hear us now.
Okay. Can you hear us, everybody?
Let us know if there's any problem hearing us now on this new feed. That was a. Let's see.
Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you guys are having
it's working. Audio is working. Awesome. Okay, so we're back. Sorry about the technical difficulty. So we will begin now.
Recap.
You know, this is a tough one because there's so much going on, but I think the first thing to start with is Joe Biden. So unless you've been living under a rock or have just woken up from a coma, Joe Biden was accused of sexual assault over a month ago. He totally ignored it and hid in a turtle shell for the last month. And he finally came out from hiding today and went on Morning Joe at MSNBC. It was an absolute train wreck. And, you know, I watched it, and I think if any of you guys watched it before you looked at the internet and like what the reaction was to it, you probably watched it and you were like, man, this was really bad. Even Democrats are not going to be able to defend this. The way he reacted to the question about the documents that are hidden at University of Delaware was just really bad.
Yeah. If you're a woman, you know he's lying.
Really bad.
I mean, it's just like asking your boyfriend, hey, show me the text messages. You know, they
won't show you. It was really bad.
No, you don't need to see the text messages. Okay, well, show me. No, I mean, there's no reason to. It's the same BS. Like, every woman knows he's lying. I mean, regardless.
Why do you have a new fingerprint password on your phone? I think biometric data is cool. I thought it'd be a cool new feature, so you can't get into my phone.
You should trust me. Just trust Joe Biden. In the words of Nancy Pelosi.
Joe Biden's Joe Biden. You know, I mean, that is like the worst defense of a guy where we literally have decades worth of videos and photos of him grabbing, touching, sniffing. I mean, I've never seen a guy behave like, honestly, my whole life, I've never seen a guy walk up to women and be like, it's just creepy. It's really creepy.
And children
it's really
too.
Creepy.
Like, it's not even laughable. Like the fact that we just all ignore that he's been inappropriately touching, grabbing, sniffing, you know, touching other people's children, kissing other people's children. There's videos everywhere. It's amazing to me that doesn't bother anybody in 2020.
I do have to be honest. There's a part of me that would like to see Joe Biden try to sniff your hair.
It wouldn't go well.
It would definitely be a viral video. It would definitely be a viral video. That would be quite a moment. No, but I don't understand this whole thing. Honestly, like as a dad, just as a dad, if I was a Democrat, okay? Just as a dad, if Joe Biden came up to my daughter and started rubbing on her sides the way he did in these, you know, Senate confirmations to senators' children, like touching them inappropriately and sniffing their hair and making jokes about them needing a fence around their house to beat people away because they're so attractive. He's talking about like 12-year-olds, okay? As a dad, I'd freak out. Absolute freak out, okay? I don't care who he is. I don't care if he's the ex-vice president of the United States. I don't care if he's like the ruler of Mars. I don't care who he is. It's inappropriate. It's not happening with my kid. Absolutely bizarre. I don't understand how any of these senators have not totally freaked out about it. But, you know, it got me to thinking, you know, there has to be like, I can never just fully trust that they just suck at things. You know, I mean, like evidence has shown us that Democrats really suck at their jobs. But there's a part of me that's always thinking maybe there's something else to this. You know, maybe Joe Biden is intentionally the person right now and they don't have any real desire to have him be their candidate. And this is just a placeholder for now.
He's like the sacrificial lamb.
Yeah.
I mean, this does not make any sense to me. Why they would have him go on a press tour announcing, you know, that he's ineligible, essentially, you know.
I mean, because even if let's pretend the thing at University of Delaware, there's these secret documents there, okay, from when he was senator. And he does not want them out, period. He made that very clear today in the thing. He does not want those out. And there is a reason why. If there was nothing to hide in there, he said himself they would be used as campaign fodder. That means that he knows there's stuff in there that would be used against him. Okay, he admitted that on live TV. I don't know what he was thinking, how they didn't prep him for this type of question, but that's what he actually admitted to, okay, that it would be used as campaign fodder against him. So let's pretend it's not the Tara Reade allegation. Let's pretend there's nothing about her in there, but there's something else really damning in there, okay? Now, why what Democrats know what's there. The people in power, they like, especially somebody like Obama, they vetted Biden furiously back then. Okay. So they know what the skeletons in the closet are. They also knew back in 2008 and in 2012 that the media was so enamored with Obama that they would never, ever run stories about Biden being touchy-feely, okay? We're in a different time period now after the Me Too era, and they couldn't avoid it as easily now because, our social media is we're so interconnected as people. There was no way around it this time. If there was, believe me, the media would have found their way around it. So you have to ask yourself, what is this sort of long game here? And just like, I can't help but think long-term, it would be really beneficial to them if Joe Biden lasted until the convention, just getting hammered, getting beat up on by the right, constantly on this allegation, on whatever it is that's in these, secret Senate stuff sealed away at University of Delaware, him just getting hammered to the convention and then him dropping out, or them demanding he drop out. So something along these lines. However it ends up, the math doesn't really matter in terms of, what the actual scenario is, but it leads to somebody new. And then you're talking about the president only having, a couple months to campaign against whoever the real person is. That's a scenario you can't discount. It's very possible that happens. And then at the end of the day, they go, oh, well, you guys shouldn't have hit Biden so early. There was no getting around this stuff with Biden. Nobody was in control of when this lady came out with an allegation. This is a fellow Democrat who's, alleging this against him. And it's fellow Democrats who are acting as witnesses corroborating her story. So, this isn't one of those things like, say with Al Franken, there was a lot of accusations the left made where they said, oh, well, the lady accusing Al Franken, she has been on the Hannity show. She's not a Democrat, blah, blah, blah. And that was something that made a lot of other Democrats comfortable with the whole deal. With Joe Biden, they don't have something like that as a crutch that they want to be able to use because they have Democrat people corroborating this. She worked for Joe Biden as a staffer when he was a senator, so it gets a lot more complicated for them. I just don't see how, as time goes on, we have months and months to go on. As this gets hammered into people's heads and we cut together clips of Joe Biden is Joe Biden and Biden stumbling through that answer, I don't see how, he could keep those documents at University of Delaware sealed throughout the entire election without it majorly damaging his prospects, okay? You have to understand with Trump, all this stuff's baked in already in terms of numbers because we already went through all this with Trump. All of the stuff that happened with him, it's been talked about, it's been discussed, until people were nauseous about it. It was 24/7 coverage. So this is all, the onus is on Biden now. And the story's on Biden now. You can't say but Trump. We already had the conversation about Trump. This is all about Biden. And that's what it will be for a while. So they made a big mistake putting him out on TV unless the plan is for Biden not to actually be the candidate in the long run.
I don't know. I mean, I tend to believe look, at the very least, they're going to have somebody lined up just in case some bombshell comes up. They always do. It's part of their, strategy. So at the very least, they have somebody in the wings.
Yeah,
who is that somebody is the question.
They've got to.
And they're working on that right now. That this is part of the strategy of figuring out okay, what happens when this stuff comes out, if this stuff comes out. And I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. I don't know how possible this is, but every time I think who would be the person, I think of Michelle Obama. Didn't she just write that book, Becoming? What is she becoming? What is she becoming? And she would be the perfect person just from a psychological point of being on a debate stage. The only person I think that would know how to have the self-composure enough to handle a personality like Trump's and take angles just to be
that the media would love.
Yes, yeah, just to have dramatic pauses and kind of a condescending, I'm a mother role type of role presence she would have.
It's something somebody like Elizabeth Warren couldn't do.
She would know how to use dramatic pauses to then interject saying something like, when you say, people, you mean Americans. Things that she could inject to try to make him look like a bigot or this, that. All she has to do is attack and use identity politics. That's what they do. Quietly attack and composed. Yeah. Because we all know that's something that people on the left, particularly far left, can't do. They can't control their emotions. She is the one person, and maybe Amy Klobuchar, but the binder throw incident. There's that binder throw.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like a lot of the people that are sort of like the suburban voter too, like they tend to trust more of the reluctant politician. And she said so many times in a row, I don't want to run. I don't want to run. I don't want to run. And if you got to a point where it was like late in the game, say, I'm going to run because I love you guys. I didn't want to do this, but I love you guys, blah, blah. I could see that. I really could. And she has the highest favorables of anybody, in the Democratic Party, across the board with independents, stuff like that. So if they did that, it would actually, it'd be you'd have to change the whole game in terms of how the campaign is run on the Trump campaign side of things. But I can't discount the fact that, I just can't believe he'll be the guy through November. It's really hard to believe that this guy who falls asleep in interviews has this, this is the most, here's the thing, by the way, this is the most credible sexual assault allegation there's been against one of these major politicians. There's nothing like this that has been alleged about Trump in terms of like having this many people corroborate, having evidence, having all this stuff. She knows when it happened, where it happened. Her mom called CNN to the Larry King show corroborating that there was an issue there. She says she filed a complaint. A police report was filed. All these things are things that did not happen in Kavanaugh's case or in any of the people who, alleged problems with Trump. This is an actual credible case. I'm not saying that, it's 100%, done and Biden sexually assaulted the woman. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying that like this is the most credible in terms of deserving investigation, deserving people to take a hard look at it, and Tara Reade deserving to be heard. Mm-hmm. She deserves to be heard, and this whole thing deserves to be sort of, at least judged in the public, court of public opinion, but possibly beyond that. It depends on, how far the victim would want to take it if this happens. So, you got to consider that this is a little bit different than these other things that we've seen with somebody like Kavanaugh. Christine Blasey Ford, the left, the Democratic Party, I mean, they loved her. They went to bat for her every second of the day, 24/7 on the news.
Facebook account showing all of her,
I mean, she didn't know
activism.
She didn't know when it happened. She didn't know exactly where it happened. She remembered the doors, that there were doors. I'm not kidding you. That was one of the key pieces of evidence. She knew where doors were. Okay. She couldn't remember where, when, her friend said that it wasn't true. Her friend that she said was going to corroborate the story said it wasn't true.
Door thing. That was the biggest.
That's what I'm talking about. That was her whole case was around her knowing there's an extra door.
No. This is separate.
The extra door in her house. In her house.
She said she had to put in because of trauma. Yeah. But then she's like, yeah, that was the extra door for interns to come stay with us.
It just, the whole thing was
doesn't make any
insane.
sense.
I mean, so basically, long story short, her story had a lot of holes in it, and that's not to say that there's something wrong with her or whatever. Honestly, I tend to try to not make value judgments on people in that respect in terms of these types of situations, except for to say that, I personally do not believe that Kavanaugh had anything to do with whatever's going on in Christine Blasey Ford's life. I didn't think her story was as credible at all in terms of these things. The people she said would corroborate her story did not corroborate her story. And then the most damning thing is we find out later on, after Kavanaugh was confirmed, that Blasey Ford's dad actually backed Kavanaugh being confirmed to the Supreme Court. So, he didn't come out in public during that whole thing, but then, months later it came out. I think Molly Hemingway at the Federalist, she got that scoop that he actually supported Kavanaugh.
Look at Kavanaugh. He never had videos of him displaying grooming behavior. I mean, honestly, I have to ask any people that would vote for Biden, if he touched your child, where he took his hand and grabbed a girl's breast, or, if he touched your child, would you be okay with that? Would you let anybody touch your child that way and then let them in your house again, let alone vote for them? I just can't believe how we've just quickly skirted past all of these child grooming videos. This is grooming behavior. I'm not going to come out and say, oh, I think he's,
that it goes further than that, but it is inappropriate behavior, very inappropriate behavior.
It's violating the consent and the bodily autonomy of children and women that he's been doing this to. And again, why isn't he doing this to men? It's only to women and children. Okay. There's videos of this, like, there doesn't even need to be an editing job. You can just watch these videos fully in context and go, wow, that's not okay. That's inexcusable. But how quickly people move on. That's the biggest thing to me.
Yeah,
it's like
we're looking at your guys' questions, by the way.
Everybody's forgotten that. So
if anybody has questions, go ahead and throw them in. So, next thing is we go into the protests. This one? This one?
Whatever one you
okay.
want to take.
So would you be okay knowing what Trump has done? First of all, it's a dumb question. I know everything that's been alleged. I could answer it like 15 different ways for any single thing that you have a question about. But I can tell you right now, there's not one thing, not one that has been credible. It's been alleged sexually about him. The one, thing that has merit is people being grossed out by the Access Hollywood tape. Totally, that's a judgment call. If it grosses you out, I totally get it. I thought it was gross. On the flip side of that, though, it's not an admission of sexual assault at all.
Not at all.
It's a gross tape, but it's sadly true. We come from Hollywood. I can tell you, sadly, that is what this whole deal
if you take
celebrities
issue with that,
it's
then
really
you should
sad.
be an activist out of every male actor, every male director, every male producer that's literally said something to that effect, if not worse, about actresses, about singers, about working with anyone. They literally say things like this out in the open. So if that's something that really bothers you, and that's the activism you want to take up, then why are you not speaking out when there's dirty locker room talk or guy talk? And that's the thing too, is like you can't seriously be pretend that you've never said anything crude sexually about a woman, even just joking. Like women say it about guys. Like, man, he practically just we say things all the time. I mean, people say things to their friends that they would never want printed on the front page of the paper. And that's okay. That's called being a human being. And I'm not defending what he said. I'm saying that there's a lot of crude, inappropriate things that we all have said in our lives.
It would have been different if he said this. I honestly do. I think it would have been different had he said this out in the open on purpose, intending people to hear it. I think that actually is different, would be worse.
Yeah, absolutely.
The fact that this was meant to be a private comment and not be heard
it was a private conversation
thing.
between two guys that were both, kind of masochistic males in the entertainment industry. And it's gross. There's no qualms about that.
It's sadly, reality.
But it's not sexual assault. There's a very big difference. There's not a person in politics or in Hollywood or in any big business for that matter, that isn't doing something or saying something to that effect. And that's the sad reality of our society as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, I would say this, the next, thing I would jump to is a lot of people bring up Stormy Daniels. Here's I have a hot take about that whole thing. I think what Stormy Daniels did is it's basically like revenge porn, people who do that type of thing. What she did was she used a consensual encounter to try to blackmail somebody. I think that should be illegal. That's, myself, I don't think that's something somebody should be able to profit off of, is blackmailing somebody with a consensual encounter. I think that that's wrong. I also think that the whole thing with her was a private issue, like in terms of family. It's kind of like what happened with Bill Clinton. I said, had Bill Clinton not been president and that whole thing happened with Bill Clinton, I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to know about it. Not my business. What happens between him and Hillary Clinton at home, that's their deal. Okay. Whatever weird stuff that they're okay with, that's their deal. Right. But it was the fact that he was president when this all happened that I think is what made it wrong. And the fact he lied about everything and he used his power as leverage and all that. That's what really was wrong in the Bill Clinton case. And it's the same thing with this stuff. It's not different.
And if there is credibility, why isn't the media still running with it? I mean, you think it'd still be relevant just today as it was yesterday in the last election if Trump truly is a serial,
they let it go because
private crotch grabber. Certainly there's other crotch victims that would like to come out and share their story.
Well, they know that it didn't work. They know that people didn't buy it.
I mean,
people didn't buy it. He went his whole life as like, this like Playboy sort of figure in the media, all this money and, he was on every cover of everything. And somebody would have come out before he ran for president. Somebody would have said something before he ran for president. Nobody said anything. There's no settlements like there was with Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton had the $950,000 settlement. There's no settlements like that with him. Mm-hmm. Before he ran for president, nobody said anything.
Right.
Okay. He was loved by minority communities. People liked him. They thought that he was interesting and all those things. I mean, he even went on, what's her, Barbara Walters, didn't she ask him, when are you going to run for president? People want you to run, These people loved him until he ran as a Republican.
What changed?
And then,
I mean, literally overnight, you know, once they started to slaughter him, you know, his whole character. But one thing I will say, because I think it's probably easier for me to say it as a woman than it is for you, with the whole hypocrisy of the Me Too movement. Like, I've been in Hollywood since I've been 18 years old. And luckily I'm not there anymore. I'm in Tennessee, but I know the business. I know how these women behave. And they're not all victims that are part of this Me Too movement. Me Too, unfortunately, they're using that, you know, real horrible situations that real victims have, you know, had to go through to somehow absolve them from the guilt they feel at this quid pro quo sexual system that runs in Hollywood. So, you know, hey, I don't have to feel so guilty about sleeping my way up to the top. I'll just, you know, Me Too. And then I don't have to feel guilty about it. Like, that's what so many of these girls and women have done to get where they're at. And it's so sad. But you know, the women that are allowing this to happen, and I'm not talking about women that have been raped. I'm talking about women that allow men to aggressively pursue them or talk to them in a certain way. That can be bought. That those women's choice, and there's so many women.
You mean the people who take part in it, the people who are like they're part of it.
So my point is like they are knowing who these people are. Okay, knowing at the time Trump was like a, you know, a ladies' man. You know, like that's not what he's always been. He's a celebrity. You know, he's a billionaire. He wants to be around lots of beautiful women. He comes out and says it. These women have a choice not to be around somebody like that, and instead they go in, you know, sexually, you know, flaunting themselves, advertising themselves, throwing themselves on people like this. Like we've all seen it that have been in the entertainment industry. Yeah. So
there's no denying it. I wish it wasn't that way.
Women that hang around men like that are not victims. Okay. And I'm not talking about rape victims or sexual assault victims. I'm talking about women that are like, you know, hanging around groupies. They're groupies. That's what this is what happens. Like,
it's, you know, it really is sad reality of that world. You know, and you just, somebody made a good point here. She said, oh, this was unrelated. She was saying Oprah too. Oprah, that's right. Oprah asked Trump too when he was going to run. But, you know, when you go into this, I think what you touched on is the hypocrisy of the Me Too movement. And that's really like where I wanted to kind of slide over to is, you look at somebody like Alyssa Milano.
Oh my gosh.
She was at the Kavanaugh hearings. I mean, she believe all women, Me Too. She was at the forefront of that whole deal. Okay. And she now supports Joe Biden, and she does not seem to be believing Tara Reade, even though the corroboration involved with Tara Reade is I mean, just it's incredibly different than Christine Blasey Ford, where there was no corroboration, there was no evidence, and now we have evidence, we have corroboration. She just doesn't like it. So, you know, I mean, believe all women when it aligns with your political motives is not as catchy, but that's what she really actually believes. It's not believe all women. It's believe it when it's politically convenient. And they're running from, they're showing how hypocritical that movement was in terms of, you know, they wanted to use a lot of things as political weapons. Yes, some bad men went down, and I'm very happy that they did. People like Harvey Weinstein. Some people got missed though. People like Bryan Singer, you know, he didn't really pay a price, you know. He just had, you know, a movie win an Oscar not that long ago. You know, after that happened.
All of these people that are connected to Harvey Weinstein, you know, like Meryl Streep. I mean, you can go research this online, but, you know, if you made a little diagram of all the people who's had their careers elevated that have been connected to Harvey Weinstein, and then also know that people knew, this was an open secret. People knew Harvey's deal. I mean, even Courtney Love said it, you know, don't ever go up, made a joke, don't ever go up to Harvey Weinstein's room.
Hotel room,
invites
don't
you.
Ever go.
Women
somebody asked her
knew.
what.
They knew this was going on, and women still wanted to be a part of it. And then they did, and then they're like, oh, I'm a victim.
That was like 8 years ago. Courtney Love was asked on a red carpet, what's advice you would give to a young woman in Hollywood who is coming up right now? What's the number one piece of advice you'd give her? And she said, don't go up to Harvey Weinstein's hotel room. That was the advice she gave. This was not a secret. Okay. And I said this at the time when it all came out. Everybody knew he was a dirtbag. Everybody knew Bryan Singer's a dirtbag. There's a bunch of people like this. Okay. And they got away with it for so long because people participated in this. Okay. People actively participated, and the people who did try to say something, like I said a lot of things about Bryan Singer. LAPD looked at the guy a bunch of times, and more victims come out saying when they were minors that they were passed around at these parties. They never do anything about it. The guy always gets off. He always pays people off, gets it done. There's a reason he hasn't sued me, because this whole thing's verifiable. It's true. They just get away with this stuff. It's amazing to me that Weinstein finally didn't get away with it. But you look at it, and the reason why he got away with it for as long as he did is people participated in it, and they were quiet, and they went along with it. They went along with this stuff because the fame mattered more to them. The money mattered more to them. And it's kind of why I feel like neither of us fit, long term in the industry. Was like, when I was silent about political opinions, everybody loved me. But once I started talking about it, you really realize like how you just don't fit there.
Oh yeah.
Because nothing's more important to me than just being me. And, like being honest about how I feel about this stuff, so disconnected from their world. There's no amount of fame or money it's worth it to me to like buy silence. Nobody's going to buy silence from us.
Well, I think that is my biggest growth or realization. Like the biggest amount of cognitive dissonance that I experienced in my life was realizing that the whole system that I was a part of was not, ethical. It was not a actual, like, you work hard, you do A, B, and C, and you can get to the next level. I didn't realize how incestuous it was. I didn't realize the sexual quid pro quo system that it was. I was so naive for so long. And, I turned that in on myself, and I thought there was something wrong with me. And I'm like looking, why are these things happening? And it took wisdom. It took life experience and wisdom and growing up to really start paying attention. But it was really hard. It was really hard to go,
why is this person getting this opportunity?
No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, it was really hard to realize that everything I had bought into and believed was a lie. Like it takes like, it takes bravery to sit and go, oh my gosh, I'm wrong about what I thought this whole system was. I'm wrong. I'm wrong about this whole thing. My whole idea of it doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
That's a reality crumbling, and that part hurt. But then,
what I think is infuriating from a male perspective in the industry, I've seen it a bunch of times where I see a really talented female and a lesser talented one, and one of them is, willing to participate in that growth side of the industry, and they start dating, like a label executive, and the more talented one is not willing to participate in that system, is not willing to date the label executive. And who ultimately gets the money put behind them? The lesser talented one that was willing to date the label executive, and I think that's gross. I think it's sick. I really do. I think it's just like, that's not how business should operate. It's definitely not how art should operate, and that's something that I noticed right away when I got in the industry. Was I was like, this is pretty messed up.
For an industry that's so vocal about sexism and the patriarchy, they literally don't even look in their own backyard and to diagnose what's going on around them that they participate in every day. They're like out with this megahorn, like the patriarchy, sexism, and they're literally working for it every day.
Yeah.
Like they're working for pedophile directors. They're working for these directors that use women and blackmail them. And they take part in it every day. It's just, it's hypocrisy, and we're all sick of it, hearing about it from celebrities.
So we just got two good questions from Nurse Liz and Civility Over GOP. How did two people being such rare, honest people? Oh, I misread that. How did you two meet being such rare, honest people in Hollywood? And so here we go. Divine intervention. That's the shortest way to put it. I've asked myself this question a million times. How was I lucky enough to stumble upon this woman? She's gonna get mad at me for this, because anytime I really get all sappy, she's like, you need to stop it. But I just I got crazy lucky, and I've asked myself a million times, how did I find this person? We've been married almost a dozen years now.
Yeah.
And I can't count the number of times I've asked myself this question, and honestly, all I can come up with is divine intervention. God must have forced it to happen, because the odds, if you just look at the numbers and you did like a pure statistical analysis of what is the chance of these two people meeting, insanely crazy bad odds that would happen, so I feel like there had to be some sort of divine magnetic sort of reason, you know, I mean, and I don't have a good answer for that.
Well, and also, like, not to tell the whole story of how I met, but like, you know, there's definitely resistance. Like, even though I had feelings for Robby, I still was like, you know, no, I have to focus on my career. No, I was buying into this feminist kind of mentality, really, that was like, you have to do these things a certain way. And, you know, a man will just get in the way of that, and love will get in the way of that. And, you know, I was buying into this system, like I said, that crumbled later of, you know, you have to do this. You have to tour nonstop. You have to, you know, do all these interviews. You don't have time for love. You don't have time for this.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of resistance. So I did my very best to like push him away.
But you fell in love with me.
But he was very, very persistent and very confident. And he was just still,
I persist.
Well, he was just at the end of, you know, all of my shenanigans trying to push him away. He was still just there smiling like, hey, I still love you. He looks like Pepe Le Pew. You know that?
Pepe Le Pew?
You know Pepe Le Pew?
Yeah, the skunk?
No, but he's like, you know,
I always hated Pepe Le Pew. I thought he was like,
maybe that's a bad example because
she's really bad at analogies, and I give great analogies. So
no, you're not a skunk, but the love he had, even when the woman is like running and chasing away his love, he's like, you are even more beautiful than before. You know, like he was persistent, and I think it was his persistence that showed me that it wasn't just about getting in my pants.
Yeah.
You know, and the fact that didn't happen, and that, you know, he was willing to still stick around. I'm like, why is this guy still here? Like, I've done everything to like scare him off, like that movie, like, you know, 28 guy waits to lose a guy.
To lose a guy. I don't remember. I don't remember the title. I think it's 15.
But I was like, yeah, but at the same time, I was really growing my feelings for him, and I didn't know why. And that's the divine intervention thing is real, because I really didn't understand. It was something bigger than myself that was aligning me up to this, you know, partner in life, this experience. And something came to me one day, you know, this divine voice, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, was like, this is it, you know. And I knew I had a choice. Am I going to pass this up if this is it or not?
Yeah.
You know, and I decided, no, I'm going to embrace this. This is what I've wanted my whole life. When you grow up in an unstable, you know, home environment, which we both experienced,
yeah,
you want that so badly. You want to have a family. It's the most important thing for you, even though the world tells you everything else is more important.
Yeah.
And accolades and achievements and, you know, degrees and all this stuff is so important. You know, you know, when you haven't had a loving family, you know, that is the most important thing. And so I think my soul was like, no, I want a family. And then my ego was like, no, but I need this. You know, and I realized, you know, I made a choice, and it was the best choice I made. And the ironic thing is, you can have it all. You know, there's no social contract.
We should have made this
saying that you can't have love and a career, or that you can't have dreams and love.
Yeah.
Like, it's so crazy. Who made that rule up?
We should have made this 11 relationship live stream, because I like talking about this stuff. So, you know, I was going to say, somebody said, that Life Love AR said, have you always had these values? So I would say that I'm going to speak for you for a second, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. I'm going to say, from an outsider perspective that watched her, for her, she had 99% of them already and for me, I would say pretty close to the same. I'd say the one issue for both of us that was different when we first got together than it is today is abortion. Because in my case, I was taught when I went to public school that, and this is just sort of a miseducation issue in our education system. I was taught that it was just this tissue that didn't have feeling. There was no, you know, ability to even feel fetal pain. There was no, you know, I was basically taught that it's nothing. It's like throwing a napkin in a trash can. That's basically the extent of what my public school education gave me. And it was only as an adult, when we had our first kid, that I really was like, no, you know what I was taught in school is not jiving with what's going on here. And I'm going to do a ton of research. And that's when I dove into medical journals and all this stuff. And I really dove into, you know, what the fetal pain science said, what development was, what was happening at conception, exactly what it was creating, what sort of brain waves, you know, all these things that are happening. And then my own experience as a dad, watching ultrasounds and watching my wife watch these ultrasounds and hear the heartbeat and go through the whole process. that had a heavy effect on me and made me very pro-life. I think when you're young, it's easy to be pro-choice because you're not faced with the choice, you know? And I also, the other thing I have to say too, though, is that I'm very against the framing of pro-choice, pro-life. I think that it's, you know, when people say they're pro-choice,
I mean,
they're saying you're anti-choice, and that's just not the case.
No.
I'm very pro your choice to choose to have sex or not, because that's the one case where I have sort of an exception, is if you didn't have a choice in having sex and you were raped, you know, or something along those lines, then, you know, I think you have to sort of, you know, it's tough. It's a tough situation, but
I may not morally agree with it, but, you know, somebody doesn't have the choice.
But I do think somebody should have a choice, you know, to choose whether or not they reproduce. And if somebody chooses to have sex, then that was your choice. You know, so I'm pro that choice. I'm just not pro your choice to murder a baby, you know? So that's the one thing I would say changed for me. Do you want to, anything you would add to that?
With what? With it?
Like how your values, like, were they mostly the same? Almost all the way the same? Like, I think the only major issue I can think of with you that really changed was abortion for both of us.
Well,
you know, and we weren't like ardently pro-choice either, by the way. We were like those people that were like, I don't like it, but I guess people should have a choice, you know. And it was the experience of having our first kid and learning all the science that really pushed us over the other direction to being pro-life.
Well, I think that, I mean, I don't want to go on a long-winded answer for that, but I will say that my values, I think, were always there. And I believe in something called innate morality, which means that you don't necessarily need a religion or, you know, the best parents or any of that to know certain things are wrong. I really believe that God gave us a gift. You know, the universe, whatever, creation, whatever you want to call it, gave us a gift of intuition. And we're taught that we only have these other senses, smell, taste, you know, but we weren't taught about our intuition. And I really believe that we have a guidance system. It's the same, you know, instincts that guide a mother when she has a baby and she sees her baby and she feels connected and knows to breastfeed. Like all of these natural things that aren't societally constructed. They're not moral constructs. They're not religious dogma. They just are love. They're attachment and connection. And so anyway, like, not to get on a whole philosophical long thing about it, but I discovered my values as I uncovered all of the other conditioning that I thought were moral, what I thought were right or wrong. And when I uncovered all that BS, you know, and some of it wasn't BS, some of it was good intentions and just, or a different label maybe that didn't resonate with me. But once I uncovered that, I realized that all of that truth was there all along. I just had covered it up with these ideas of what I'm supposed to be, or what I'm supposed to, what is being a good Christian, or do I have to be that, or why do I have to have that label, or why do I have to go here to pray, or why do, you know, all of those questions, like just spiritually seeking, or just in general forming your beliefs about raising children, things like that. And I started to tune inward and trust myself more, because I really believe that it's within us, that moral code, that design that is, you know, that is within us. It's the same thing when you get that feeling that guides you. I mean, where you're like, oh, don't do this, or that person's not good. Listen to that. It's the same thing. It guides all of our values if we look inside and stop looking out here for our values. Yeah. So that's what I was gonna say is, I
would say, you know what, the other thing that did change though, too, beyond that, is just an overall growth in the depth of how we thought about things. There were things that like our natural instinct was right in terms of where our values were, but the depth and breadth of understanding it was not fully there. And I think that that's there now, you know, not that we're ever done learning, because I think that's the one good thing about us as partners, is that like we're both committed to constant learning. And I think you have to be committed one way or the other. Either you're committed to learning and growing, or you're not. And I think that's where a lot of people grow apart, is that one person wants to grow, one person's happy to just stay the same, period, and they don't want any growth. They're like, this is good, I like only this, and I'm not willing to, you know, go try this new thing with you. I like this. I like going to this one fast food restaurant and that's it, and I don't want to go anywhere else, you know. And what's, you know, that doesn't mean you have to be up for change all the time either, because for instance, I don't like change. I'm not really a change person. I do like the same foods at restaurants and stuff, but when you love somebody, I think there's sort of like this intertwining philosophy that you have to have where you give each other certain things. So like she loves trying new places, new things and stuff when it comes to food. So that's something that I've grown to love. It's not something that was natural for me, but something that I do. There's things that I love that are maybe not natural to her, but she grows into them and ends up loving them too. Right. So those things are important.
Also like, you know, I think that I think the biggest thing that took our marriage to like a deeper level was me learning to love myself fully as an individual and not expecting him to fill something that I was supposed to fill for myself. And so you get two people if you get two people that are broken and they look to each other to try to fill each other's holes, eventually that's never going to
work. Yeah, that's never going to work.
I mean, there's just no replacement for learning to give yourself love and growth, like, and working on yourself. And, you know, I work on myself for me, but I also work on myself so that I have more to give him, and I have more to give him if I'm refining myself as a person. Yeah. And I have, you know.
So you guys inspired me. Now I want to.
How do we start this on Joe Biden?
Exactly. Now, well, I'm kind of depressed because I feel like this is a standalone would have been a really good thing, like for people to refer back to. But with the Joe Biden part, it just feels very unnatural. But it was you inspired me. So we're going to do an episode about love.
It was a good question.
We're going to do a whole other episode
maybe
about
that's
love.
What we need, you know? That's what we all need.
So let's look at the rest of these comments.
Stop focusing on stupid stuff. I don't know.
Charlie said, most people don't trust their God-given instincts. That's very true. It's something that I hammer home all the time to our kids, and even still to Landon, is that's one gift I was always given. You go the other direction. One gift I was always given, you know, was that I've always trusted my instincts. Always. I've always trusted my intuition, my instincts. I don't question it. I trust it, and it's always served me well. That's a big one. Mm-hmm. Samantha, you deserve it. You deserve somebody who looks at you the way I look at Landon.
I wish more women, especially feminists, could have that love, because they're so angry because they've shut the door out to love. That might
be why they're so upset.
And I'm not even saying love of a man or any love. I mean, literally any love in general. When you're so angry and you've built up so many walls, nobody wants to be around you. You're just not nice.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with your gender or your sexuality. It's just not being pleasant.
Can I just throw in there that picking cats is not a good idea? Cats don't really love you. Cats don't like humans. They really don't. Like, they're cute, they're nice and everything, especially when they're kittens, but they don't love you. Like a cat, if you put it outside the front door, it's gone. They're gonna leave. They'll come back when they're hungry. Exactly. They'll come back when they're hungry, but they're not interested in actually being with you.
There's a few.
There's rare exceptions, but let's go by the general rule. Okay. Now with dogs, you take like 100 dogs and you stick them at your back door. When you open your back door in 20 minutes, most of them are going to be at your back door, still waiting to come back inside to be with you. So dogs want to be with you. That's just my rant on cats. Okay. As everybody knows, I don't like cats.
But I mean,
except for the one that we have.
As we reflect, like, I have a little bit of a confession that I'll share with you guys. As we like reflect on like going back to that time period, like, I think I did go through a little bit of a feminist craze. And I don't mean like I didn't, you know, wear a pussy hat or like, you know, cut my hair and get angry or anything. Not that that any of those really like mean that you're
no, they don't. I would call it the last.
I'm painting a picture. Okay, I'm just illustrating a picture. I'm not saying any one of those things make you a crazy feminist. All right. I think short hair is beautiful. It's not my point. My point is I didn't like do any of that to. Okay, well, I feel like you have to explain things sometimes, or everything's taken out of context. Anyway, but I did go through a phase where I gave him hell. Like, I was miserable to be around. And he would say something and I'd be like, stop trying to control me. Are you trying to control me?
When was this?
How do you not remember? But you would just laugh. You would literally laugh at me.
I think I have a gift when it comes to like, so say the hard part of, you know, when babies are newborns and like they're waking up all the time and they're pooping their diaper all the time and everything. And a lot of parents are like, it was exhausting. It was terrible. I like blacked it out of my mind. It's gone. So that way, if we ever have another kid, I don't remember how terrible that period of time was. There's no recollection of it. So same thing with this, probably. Whatever she's saying is absolutely true. I mean, she has a better memory than I do, but I've blocked it out. So, and I have a generally very easy attitude. So,
but I mean, in general, like, I went through this phase of this feminist mentality of like, you know, it's men that are against me. If there weren't so many men that were such, you know, jerks and trying to control women and trying to just sexualize women. And, you know, I went through this like hyper fixation on it's something outside of me that's making me so angry. And it really took, life, wisdom, love to process and go, oh, I get to choose how I respond to all this. I can do something about it. I can create my own system of how I want to do my music or my career or my family. And I think that it all boils down to personal responsibility. And it goes back to what we were saying about these women with Trump and these women that hang around as groupies, these men that they know are predators.
Yep.
So, we have we have freedom in America as women. We can do whatever we want. We don't have to work for people that we don't like.
Let me give you an example, okay? You know, a lot of people, and I'm going to talk about this in a future episode towards the beginning of it, because I think, a lot of people are off the thing now. And I think it's something that people need to understand about Hollywood and how it works. So as a director, I made a rule very early on that I had multiple people in the room with me
it's
for
like
castings.
Mike Pence rule. Right?
That's exactly what I was going to say. It's like Mike Pence. People give Mike Pence a lot of shit, but what he did is absolutely the correct decision if you're a man that's in a position of power where there's these situations that can happen. Because I swear to you, and I have witnesses to this, I have had in a casting session before a woman walk in, take her top off, and proposition to get a part in front of other people. And like, you could hear a pin drop. It was so awkward in this room. Everybody's like looking at each other like, did that really just happen? Craziness, total craziness. This stuff actually happens in Hollywood.
And then the woman that came
way
to your car,
more often than
the one that
you
came
think.
to your car.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's lots of, you wouldn't believe the stuff that goes on. It's crazy. I mean, and this is like not even for a big role. This is like a featured extra. It was something that should have taken 2 minutes. Like, we're not even having people read lines. These people walk through and we're like, do they fit the look for this or not? And it's really quick, and no matter what, they were going to be placed somewhere in this project that we were doing. So it's not like they're like, oh, you're not going to be on camera. Like, it doesn't even matter what it was, but just the fact that it was that case, like, you're going to be in it no matter what. This was just to score more time on camera, and it was just sick, just gross. Like, that's how little value or little, like, when you use something like that as a commodity, you're not just doing yourself a disservice, you're doing a disservice to everybody else, because most of the guys involved in the industry would probably be like, yeah, throw her in the featured part, and they would play along with it, just like that girl was playing along with it in her own way by doing it, because Hollywood has told her that that's what the value is. And that's the sad part, is it's a vicious cycle like that, because I don't even put the onus totally on her. This is something that the industry reflected back to her was a commodity. So, but what happens to all those women who don't do that, they're genuinely good actors, are trying to break in the business, and they're not going to do that.
Right.
They get totally screwed over, for the most part. There's rare exceptions, people get lucky, stuff like that, but it's just sad. I think it's sad.
It is. It's sad.
But men, I can't say enough. As much as you think you don't need to build those things in, build them into your life, into your companies, into your things. Just
protect yourself. You have to protect yourself. Simple
standards. Like, I mean, I won't even say for us, like, if we have somebody working at the house, like, I don't want to be alone. I know this is terrible, but there's a reflection of the Me Too era. I don't want to be alone with a woman at our house while she's working on something. Like, say we have somebody come and,
Well, also, you become a target, when you're known in the industry, or
say we hire somebody to be a painter, and it's a female painter. Like, I don't want to be alone with the person. I've seen enough things happen to enough people. Like, I'm not going to be alone. We have cameras everywhere on our property and stuff. Like, it's not going to happen. Like, so you have to, if you're a man, definitely do those things so that you're not only protecting yourself, you're also sort of by proxy protecting the people who are not willing to be a part of that vicious cycle. Right. Because by doing those things, you're not going to attract the people that are a part of that vicious cycle. Yeah. I guess that's the best way I could put it.
Right. But that makes sense.
Yeah. We didn't talk about the protests. So protests real quick before we're done. There's the protests to cancel rent, and that's the left-wing side of this. And then on the right, we have, a lot of people armed protesting at, state houses and different places in capitals across the country. And, this isn't a value judgment thing about any of the protests. This is actually a just sort of like, this is a come to Jesus moment for politicians. Like, you guys better get the states open because you have both sides so pissed off that they're protesting at this level right now. You give it another 30 days, it's going to be absolute calamity. So any politicians watching, get it together, get a plan together to safely reopen. But this can't, I mean, it doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or not. Okay. You know, I know you guys want to get Trump, but you're going to end up getting yourselves in trouble in your own states. You won't be able to get reelected. Open these states. If you have any sort of semblance of care for this country, you need to find a safe way to open the states, unless you're an absolute hot spot, like somewhere that is like, you know, you have skyrocketing cases. The vast majority, 99% of the country needs to open up.
Right. I think
because it's just too bad at this point.
Trump has touched on this, but they haven't at any of the press conferences, to my knowledge, brought on any like mental health experts.
Yeah.
To talk about the ramifications of people's psychological states, you know, the increase in domestic violence.
Yep.
What if there's going to be an influx in the, you know, child protective services? You know,
absolutely.
I mean, there's all of these other, you know, factors to consider that aren't talked about, and I think it's time to maybe bring somebody on, you know, to talk about these issues.
Yeah, to talk about all that.
You know, just the other day, somebody committed suicide off a bridge near our house. You know, this is real. This is real for people. And whatever we think about it, like, well, job's not that important. You know, it doesn't matter what you think about it. These are people's lives, and their work and their ability to provide for their family is their purpose and their livelihood. So it's not just about jobs. It's not just about income. It's about living. It's about living, and how we all define what living means is different. You know, some people, I guess, could be perfectly happy being at home and wearing a mask the rest of their lives when they, you know, have to venture out. But some people don't view life that way. You know, they'd rather take the chance of getting, you know, something, you know, if there ever was something that was even more serious than COVID, you know, they would rather take the chance. And I don't think that we get to decide for other people, you know, what their life means.
It feels like everybody sort of agrees with this idea that there does, you know, like, as much as it sounds weird in some contexts, there has to be some sort of like agreed boundaries in how men and women treat each other in these professional situations that I think, you know, it doesn't mean that you know, discriminate in any way or anything like that. It just means there has to be sort of intelligent, healthy checks and balances for everybody's safety. And I think that's something that companies more and more need to pay attention to just like, hey, if you're going to have meetings that are one-on-one, make sure it's in a conference room where there's a camera, so there's no confusing what happened in case something does happen. You know, it's not saying men and women can't meet together or don't hire or anything. It's saying just have checks and balances for everybody's safety, you know, that you know what's going on. If you're a major corporation, that should already be going on.
I think it's just, and as a woman too, it's safer for you to always meet in more neutral environments unless you have a trusting relationship that you know, you are alone with the person. I mean, I think that's just common sense. It's just smart, and women need to do that. There would be less.
Great point from Miss Lily Maga. There's been officer deaths, you know, so many officer deaths from domestic violence calls. They're very dangerous calls. Domestic violences are up all across the country. The calls they're getting, and they're some of the most dangerous calls for officers to go to. So that's a big deal.
And you look at the sales of alcohol, and if what do we know? We know about when the sale of alcohol goes up, the demand for drugs also goes up. So we can't really quantify what, you know, the drug traffic is looking like. But we know that also when alcohol use goes up, domestic violence goes up, and violence all across the board goes up.
They're talking about what you're talking about, intoxicated people relapsing. That was one of the big concerns for me, is relapsing, people who relapse. Because, you know, you think about something I think all of us lose sight of, you know, but I had an alcoholic in my family, and I saw how it ravaged, you know, just everybody around that person. And I thought about that actually quite a few times throughout this shutdown. Like, how many people like that are not going to be able to deal with the silence of their own thoughts and are going to turn back to that thing that destroyed their life?
That's what I'm saying. Work is more than just a job and something to do. It's, for a lot of people, it's their purpose. It's their sense of mental, you know, health. to contribute and to have this routine that keeps them in a good mental health space.
Yep.
If we just all of a sudden nobody worked anymore, we would not be in a good place.
Yeah.
In our country.
But we do. I agree with who was it who said this? They said the economy needs to open, or it was Lily again. Economy needs to open, or our nation's in great trouble. It's absolutely the case. I mean, and it's one of those things that I'm not saying there's not going to be consequences to it. I'm not going to say that everything's going to magically get better.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, we have to look at a pros and cons list here, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And when you map out all of the long-term effects of this shutdown already, it's tremendous. It's a tremendous list. And I don't mean in a good way. I mean in a very negative way. It's going to take a lot of time to recover. There are going to be unintended deaths that come as a byproduct of this.
Mm-hmm.
And the longer it goes on, the more unintended byproduct deaths there's going to be, from whether it's mental health, relapses, unfortunately suicides, all types of things. And you just have to be careful. The other thing to think about too is how many people are not going to go get care right now because they're afraid of getting coronavirus at the hospital, and you may be delaying treatable colon cancer for untreatable colon cancer in a month.
Or checkups that can,
when things get better,
mean the difference.
Yeah.
Or early intervention.
I mean, I put off a surgery. I was supposed to get a surgery for something. I have a hernia that basically, it's kind of hard to explain, but my stomach's in the wrong place. And it's supposed to be a not too difficult thing, but I was supposed to get the surgery, and I put that off because of this coronavirus thing. Because when you listen to the medical community and they say, "Oh, we're so overrun, everything's so crazy," you think, what, maybe not the best time. It's not an emergency for me. I'm just going to wait. And then you look at TikToks of the doctors and nurses. Things just don't add up for a lot of people.
The TikToks.
I don't get it. I really don't get it with the TikToks. They really bother me. I find it very irritating. But all right, let's see here. I think we are. Yep. I think we got through all the questions.
Yeah, I will say that the alcoholic in my life, in my family, is not doing well.
Oh no, not at all. Not at all.
So firsthand, we know what this situation is how it's affecting people. And everybody's circumstance matters, not just people who are getting an illness,
not just the loudest voices on TV.
Well, but also not just one illness. One illness over another isn't more important. When you're dealing with lives, everybody's lives are valuable. So I think it's important to consider and to have that conversation.
100%.
So anyway, I hope you guys have a great weekend. Hopefully you can get in the sunshine and enjoy the weekend.
Yeah, we'll talk to you guys soon.
Bye, y'all.